I am so excited today to talk about reviews and all of the interesting things that have gone on over the last year with the FTC and the CFPB. And to do that, what I wanted to do is get an expert, and who better than Craig Pollock from Experience.com. Craig, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Ken. This is a subject that is incredibly important for not only our organization, but all of our clients. Because that is the core of our system, which is helping them collect and share feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so everybody knows, Craig called me and he's like, we need to get a message out there to make sure people understand this. And it was so cool because I'm normally calling other people saying that we need to get the compliance word out, but that came straight from you because you care about people getting the truth when they're reading the reviews. Now, just to catch everybody up, we've run into a couple cases recently where, and it's a couple recently, but this has been going on for a long time, where people were deceptive in the way that they released their reviews, right? So maybe they didn't tell everybody everything. And one of the biggest cases recently was the Fashion Nova case. In the Fashion Nova case, I think it was $25 million or something like that, ended up being the fine in that one. But they had actually been accused of hiding a lot of the reviews that weren't, 5 or 4-star reviews. And so that was a big one. And all of the stuff in the past goes back to, there was an app that basically had all of their employees rate the app 5 stars on the first day. And the FTC was able to go back and track the IP address to show that all of the reviews came from 2 IP addresses. So throttling of reviews is a problem. Craig, talk to us about why reviews are even important in the first place and why them being truthful is valuable.
Well, sure. So first of all, I'm talking mostly about the mortgage industry. And I know you referenced some cases that are outside of the mortgage industry. And we probably should circle back before we're done with this conversation and talk about why something that the FTC has said is now important to the CFPB. Okay. That aside for the moment. In any business today, the modern society, reviews are paramount. Whether it's the next 50-inch plasma TV that you're buying, or whether it's a car, or it's a hotel vacation, what people are saying about it is incredibly important. We've just become a review and reputation society. Mortgages, because you don't touch it, you don't feel it. There are no specs, right?
Yep.
So you have to rely on something, and customer feedback is one of the best things to rely on. So now if you're a professional, you should be collecting feedback from as many customers as possible, and you should be leveraging that feedback for getting more business. But look, every once in a while, even the best of the best gets a 2-star or a 3-star review. We're talking about on a 5-star scale here. And you should use the feedback from your customer as a way to grow and improve your business. What we've been doing for a couple of years now, and we've been saying for a long time, selection bias, you can't have it. There are companies, when we first got in the business, I don't even know if they're still around, but when we first got in the business, there were companies that were actually more of a testimonial platform. And by that, they allowed you to collect feedback, and then you could go into a portal and you could say, put this one on the website, put that one on the website, put that one on the website. And that company didn't do ratings. There's no stars that you could choose. It was just testimonials. We didn't like that method. We said, look, you should be surveying all your customers. You should do it in an automated way because that's the fairest way, right? You're not going to forget to send a survey out if we're connecting to your loan system and doing it automatically. You should automate it. You should systematize it so that everyone gets feedback, and then accept what they say. Now, we understand sometimes the customer is downright mean, right? They say things about you personally. They say things about your family. They say things about a member of your team. We're not in favor of that. And we will remove, and we have traditionally removed reviews where customers have been downright mean. A lot of times they say curse words, and we want our platform to be family friendly, even though the mortgage is pretty much an adult product. We still want everybody with all their sensibilities to be able to read it and not be offended. So our system actually flags curse words.
Nice.
And we've actually built a new tool where we actually have the ability to go in and edit a curse word. So if someone says a bad word, we could just maybe have the first letter and then we can have 3 asterisks afterwards so that you know what the customer was saying without them having to use that word. That catches about 98% of the bad words, and we're able to release those reviews with a edit to those words. Every once in a while, we get a review where the person just laces it with diatribes and our system says, "I can't handle this," and so those are
too much.
The exception. But almost every other review, in our opinion, and this has been our opinion for a long time, almost every other review really needs to stay on the platform. But it's been an uphill struggle.
As painful as that is.
Yes, exactly. And we get loan officers all the time. They either submit a ticket to support and they say, "How do I get rid of this review? It's so unfair. The customer was so difficult." We actually have a tool that lets them flag the review and they can give us the reason. So the majority of them are, and again, it's oftentimes unfair, not true. Sometimes they say, I had one that the customer said better communication. In other words, they gave them like a 2 or a 3. And then the question is, what could have made it better? And the customer simply writes better communication. And the loan officer writes back and says, customer's review is defamatory. Now, I don't know how better communication is truly defamatory. I get it. You don't like it. You think you communicated perfectly. But at the end of the day, it's the customer's right to have an opinion about the experience. And if you're asking everyone for their feedback, then you really should let everyone express it in the same way and publish it in the same place. And now we're getting to what CFPB is saying. I don't know. Do you want to go over the bullet points? Of I think there's 3 main items.
Yeah. Why don't you keep going? You're doing a great job.
So I think there were 3 main things they were talking about. One of them doesn't really apply in the mortgage business to my knowledge, but the FTC has said, look, you can't put terms and conditions in your contracts that make it illegal for your customer to write a negative review about you. And I think there were some software in the terms and conditions, which we all agree to, but none of us ever read.
Never.
And so that was part one. Now, part 1 was some companies were implying that the customer had agreed to those things, whether they did or didn't, as a way to say to the customer, if you don't remove the negative review, then we're going to sue you because you agreed not to do that. Okay. Right. And the FTC has said you can't do that. You can't threaten to sue somebody if they don't remove a review, which they had every right to create.
Yep.
But again, I don't think that really applies in the mortgage business because I don't think anybody's putting anything about derogatory reviews or any reviews in any of their documents, their disclosures.
Right.
What applies to the mortgage industry is select and removing reviews after the fact if they don't conform to a narrative that you want. And the example you gave with Fashion Nova was, if a company, so let's talk about a home mortgage company. If a home mortgage company decides to put on the front page of their website over 5,000 reviews, 5-star average, read our reviews, and then there's a scroll of dozens and dozens of reviews, and it's showing the star rating of those reviews, there is an implication that those are all the reviews.
Yep.
Not just the ones you think are worth showing off. So that's where they're saying, look, you can't do that. You can't put a website together and give people the impression it's all if it's just some.
Yep.
Now, you and I were talking about it. A compliance manager or your attorney could give you advice on what to do, because I don't want to be that person. But you might be able to get away with saying over 5,000 reviews, a 4.8 average. here are just some of our 5-star reviews. And now your front page website has 25-star reviews. Great. Here are some of our 5-star reviews, right?
Right.
Nobody will, because you're saying some, people will say, I get it. This is not all of them.
Well,
Now,
then
some,
with a click that says, click here to read the rest of them.
and again, I would say that's where and say you do need to have a link to all, or the attorney would say, no, the use of the word some is enough. I'm not going to play that game, right?
Right.
Because you know, it's just I can only get in trouble for giving legal advice on a video, right? Nobody's going to send me a check for my legal services.
Yeah, you know, it is. Here's the thing: we all buy things, right? You go on Amazon, you go, and it's like 5-star reviews on 5,000, 5,000 reviews, all of them 5 stars, and then you'll click on it, and it's like, I love the way it does it, where it's like, here's all the 5-star ones, here's the lowest reviews they got, and for me, it's a way more honest product when I can see both of those things. I don't think there's any value in just showing them the 5 stars without letting them see some of the others. Because what I always like is you go to a hotel that looks really amazing, has all these 5-star reviews, and then you see a 1-star review and they're like, oh my gosh, the hallways had kids running all over them, you know, and they were yelling and screaming and it was way too loud of a hotel, right? And then you read below it and it goes, it's the hotel responding, saying, oh my gosh, you were here on the busiest week of, we had the big basketball tournament was in town, and we're so sorry that those kids were loud in the hallway. We try to do our best to keep that, noise to a minimum. I love that as a guy that's going to stay there. Yeah. I'm like, okay, dude, the worst thing that they had was they were there on the wrong weekend. Yeah. And I see the response. Like, it's so honest versus a bunch of 5 stars. And then I go there and I experience, like, they're going to get it, right? You don't want to have me wait till I experience it, because then I'm going to blast it later and be like, this was the most horrible place ever, if, there's other things you were hiding from me. So you're just trying to give the consumer an honest understanding of what people experience. And Craig, wouldn't you agree that people kind of know some people are mean? And so when I go and I read a 1-star and they're like, they didn't give me the rate that I wanted, whatever, like, okay, I think enough consumers know to put that one on the side and be like, I don't know what was going on with that guy. Look at all these.
Totally. So first of all, this is something I've been saying to people for years. The occasional less than perfect review, so anything other than a 5, only serves to validate that all of the 5s are real.
Yes,
right.
Totally.
Our whole philosophy has been, we want to identify the reviewer with enough information that it appears to be a real person without telling everyone in the world exactly who it is. Now, and again, we're not the only company that the lenders who are watching this video can use to collect reviews, right? We're not the only place. So I can't say everyone should do it this way, but I can tell you we've thought carefully about it. We give first name, last initial. We give city and state. We like that because most mortgages are done locally, right? So if you're a consumer and you are in Portland, Oregon, and you're thinking about doing business with a loan officer who is in Portland, Oregon, and you go and look at the reviews and they're all people who are in Portland or suburbs around Portland, then you're like, okay, this is a real guy doing real reviews with real people in my area. And wait a second, I think I know a Richard W. that lives here.
Yep.
Right. So that's important. The other thing that I always say to people, almost every person, regardless of what they do for their living, or if they don't have a living, but almost everyone has customers, right? A homemaker has customers, the kids, the spouse, the neighbors. They're all your customers, and it's hard to make people happy. We all understand that it's hard to make everyone happy. So when someone is not happy, don't freak out and say it's the end of the world, because every person reading those reviews gets it. It's hard. What you should do, and this goes to, again, how we do things, not necessarily how everyone does things, we give our customers lots of options to mitigate negative reviews. So the very first one is reply to review. The loan officer or a manager at the company can reply to the review.
Mhm.
It's rules based, depending on the client. So some companies say, look, I don't want my loan officers replying to 3-star reviews, but they can reply to 4s and 5s. We'll reply to the 3s and below. And so
they already had their chance.
Yeah, Mr. Jones, I'm so sorry. As the senior executive in charge of customer satisfaction at XYZ Mortgage, I'm so sorry that you had a bad experience.
Yep.
Dave's one of our best loan officers, and as you can see from his other reviews, he normally performs at a very high level.
Mm-hmm.
I will personally be talking to him. I will be looking at the file, the notes, everything about your file. Even reach out to you to have a telephone conversation because I want to know everything that went on, and I want to see if there's anything that we did along the way that we can learn from and improve our company. So if you say you're the senior executive and you write that reply, number one, the customer says, holy crap, these guys care about customer service. This is not just a mill where they're churning out customers and they don't care. Secondly, if you do pick up the phone call, they're even more impressed. Sometimes you can turn that unhappy customer into the biggest brand advocate you've ever had because their expectations were here, and after their experience, they went down to the bottom, and now you're exceeding them by a good margin, and you could have a raving fan. Second thing that we do is we have a request a retake. So let's say that conversation takes place and the customer is like, you know what, now that you've explained it to me, I don't think the experience was all that bad. There was still some room for improvement, but it wasn't all that bad. Is it possible I could take that survey over? Well, as a matter of fact, there's a little button that I just pressed. Look in your inbox. There's a survey reminder. There's a new email that you can take that survey over again, and it's a total mulligan. Whatever before will come away. Whatever score you gave will come away. The new score will come in. Okay?
Yep.
Now, sometimes you don't want to do the reply. You just want to do the retake, right? Customers will write a review and they'll say, you know, the settlement was a total train wreck. We started late. The paperwork was misplaced. My check wasn't ready. You know, I'm not happy. Well, as you know, Ken, as I know, as almost everyone knows, we don't always control the title or escrow company. We don't even choose it as the lender. Sometimes someone else made that choice, right? And so if you just got on the phone and called them and said, hey, I understand that you're upset that the last thing you remember was the settlement was a disaster, but I want to remind you of two things. Number one, we settled a week earlier than we thought we were going to because you asked us to, right? And number two, I didn't choose that company. In fact, I've had bad experiences with them before, but we were forced to use them for this reason or that reason. If the customer says, oh my gosh, you're totally right, and I was totally unfair, I was just a little pissed off in the moment, then again, you don't even have to hit reply to review, just have them retake it. Now, sometimes those two things don't fail. And a loan officer is saying to me, my mind is so racked with frustration because the first thing that people see when they come on my experience.com profile page is this 2.45 star rating. And that's not me. Right? And of course, the answer is, well, you could go out and get more reviews. And they're like, yes, but every customer that I've closed in the last 30 days has already completed their survey. There's nobody left. And I don't close another loan for 2 more weeks. Well, we just came out a couple of weeks ago. It's called Pin Review to Top. And it lets them go into their back office and find up to 3 of their favorite reviews from the past and pin them to the very top of their page.
Nice.
So now, no matter what happens with the newest review, every person who comes on time is going to see the 3 pinned reviews.
Nice.
And those pins
so
can be
almost
changed
like Google
out.
when you get the advertisement at the very top. I mean, we're kind of used to that as well. When you Google anything, it's add, and then all the other stuff below that.
That's right. And there's a pin there, so a consumer knows that review is at the top. They can also still see the date. So if they're seeing that one is from February and one is from December and one is from November, and then they get the one from April, they're like, okay, and they see the little blue pin in the corner, right? So those are 3 things that we built, right? And so at the end of the day, we kind of feel like there's really no need to remove a review.
Mm-hmm.
I could say that until I'm blue as your couch. People are still going to say remove the review, and that's why we have to point out what the CFPB is saying now. And this came straight from the executive director, right? This is not some mid-level person who just threw out an opinion. This is from the top.
Right. And they're all collaborating. I mean, like every regulator right now is in meetings together with other regulators saying, what do you guys care about? What do you guys care about? So any regulator that pops, like in our CE this year, we've got a case the OCC did. And it's like, well, why should I care about the OCC? I'm a mortgage broker, or I'm an independent mortgage banker. Well, you should care because the OCC is in meetings every single day with your regulator, the CFPB, the FTC, and guess what? Your state. And so everything they do, you've got to pay attention to. And when, interestingly, Rohit, the current director of the CFPB, is doing exactly the same thing that Richard Cordray did, which is announce something you're upset with, and then just start pounding people for it. And so you have to watch every word that comes out of their mouth, because every word is going to lead you to know, what do I need to work on right now to keep myself out of their headlines so that they're not diving in to find out what I'm doing. And the FTC has been very clear on these reviews. The CFPB is now coming out and talking about the reviews. It is vital that we leave everything in there. And Craig, I want to point out that I was really impressed by. You said, we'll allow you to pin it. And then you said, they can still wait. They can still see the other reviews. Like, you made a point to say, we're not hiding things from the consumer. We still did what they need to see. It's still all there. And I think that's what you could have easily taken all the dates off reviews, and then it would confuse the consumer in that they would think that those 3 were the most recent ones, and they're not. Right. And you made it obvious. So you can be as flexible as you can without confusing this consumer or misleading them. And that's where rules like the MAPS rule on being deceptive with your consumers, it's where the endorsement rule comes in. One last thing I should say on that, I had a buddy that was a compliance guy for a mortgage company, and we were chatting. He's like, I don't know what to do with this loan officer. And I'm like, why? He goes, I just audited his Yelp. And what he did is he went into Yelp and he found the guy's reviews, and he did a Google search on, or not a search, inside of his company funded loan search. None of the people had funded a loan with him. And then he did some further research on his Facebook page and found out that everybody that had made comments were like his college roommate, his mother-in-law. None of them said, by the way, I didn't use the product, and also I'm related. Like, these are things that the endorsement rule requires. And so just one other thing on reviews, it's not just about throttling the bad ones. It's about be careful with the good ones, making sure that you're being, if my mom was to review me on experience.com, technically, according to the endorsement rule, I need to go on right after the words. And in that reply to that you've got, I need to say, oh my gosh, thanks, Mom. Love ya, like, or something that like points out that that's actually a relative of mine. So if you have a relative give a good review, you just have to call it out so that people know that the endorsement is coming from somebody who's also, pretty close with you, especially if it's by blood.
These are things that I haven't really given much thought to, and so I'm glad that you brought them up. I will say, we've always had that perspective that all reviews should be on our profile page. Okay. Now, where we have not been as consistent, and where we now, based on the CFPB bulletin, are going to change our tune, is we provide our partners, our clients, with an API feed. So they can get our API and they can use that feed for anything they want. They can put it on, and most of them put it on their website, right? Some of them put it on the loan officer pages and on the company page. Some people put it just on the company page, but that's what a lot of our clients do. And we've always said to them, if you want to only show the best reviews, the API is the way to do it, because our widget is not going to let you filter, and our public profile pages, the ones that are on experience.com, which is pro.experience.com/ and then somebody's name, those are always going to be all the reviews, and they're always going to be defaulting to chronological order at the top, with the exception of the new rule now, the new feature with pinned are at the top. So once you get through the 3 pinned reviews, it's other reviews in date order, right? You can't, there's no way in our system that a loan officer or a company can manipulate our page to only show the better reviews. Now the customer can go on a public page and sort it lowest to highest. And believe me,
nice.
the way I buy products on Amazon, that's actually what I do. I always, when I'm looking at products that I want to know about reviews, I'll do it in chronological, because I don't want Amazon to feature any certain review that they think I should read. I want chronological. And that's because I also know that on Amazon, as it is with Experience.com and loan officers, over time, the experience changes. So if I'm thinking about doing a loan with somebody, and do I really care what they got in 3 years ago? Because 3 years ago, they didn't have a mobile app. And 3 years ago, they didn't have all of the underwriters working from home, and they weren't using an offshore outsourcing company for some of the work. I want to see the most recent reviews, right? So I want to see most recent, but then I might want to see the worst reviews and see how bad they are and how old they are.
Right.
Because if the lowest review was from 2019, and then the next one was from 2018, and then the next one was from 2020, and I'm like, okay, 2020, we're getting a little closer. But then I read, like you said, you promised me a such and such interest rate, and it was a 1/4 point lower. Well, now I'm looking to see, was there a reply to the review? Yes, I promised you a 1/4 point lower, but unfortunately, we couldn't meet the deadline. We had to extend the rate, and that's why the rate went, we gave you a choice. You could either pay points to keep the rate, or we would move you up to the other rate, or whatever. The point is that as a consumer, I could read a reply from the business that tells me why the customer didn't get what the customer thought they were going to get. So where we've changed our tune is this guidance from CFPB. Now, we can't control what a lender puts on their website because I'm giving them an API feed. They could just as easily scrape our website, or they could go into our back office and run a report on an Excel file and hand it to their web developer and say, here's all the reviews we got for the last 60 days. Put only the 5-star reviews on our website. Right? All the API feed does is it makes that job easier. Nobody has to run a report. Nobody has to do it. But what I'm saying to lenders now is, please consult your attorneys, consult your compliance managers, and make an informed decision on how you want to display reviews on your public website. What word you use to describe them? Do you leave it for the consumer to imply and assume that these are all of your reviews? Or do you make it explicitly clear that we are advertising some of our best reviews? Right? And by the way, the word advertise reminds me of another topic that we wanted to talk about, was social media. So our tool, and again, not everybody in this industry uses our tool, but our tool has the ability to automatically share a review on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or all three. Loan officers can connect their accounts. And so the question would come up, maybe someone's even thinking it right now, well, if you're not allowed to filter reviews and you're not allowed to hide the bad reviews, then does that mean I have to turn my auto posting to Facebook so that it shares even my 2-star reviews? And I would say no, because a post on Facebook is an advertisement. It is one review. And you do have the right to cherry pick which reviews you post on Facebook. Or which ads you run or whatnot, right? And again, one review on Facebook does not imply that if one customer gave you a 5, that is not implying that all my customers give me a 5.
Well, let me tell you how the FTC looks at that. So they use what's called the reasonable person or reasonable consumer test. So if you see something, what would a reasonable consumer think? And I think I totally agree with you. If I look at Facebook and I see somebody go, oh my gosh, look at this 5-star review I got, the reasonable consumer thinks, oh, that's one that they're sharing of the many that they've gotten. I don't think anybody thinks Oh, that's like the most recent one. Facebook is, you're right. You're advertising cool things that people post about you. So I would add to that. I always want a link, no matter where you're sharing these reviews. I always want a link to view the rest of the reviews. So that's it's a big one. And when I see mortgage companies, which I've seen all the time, in fact, last year the CFPB went after something like 12 companies, and that was under a regulator that didn't even care, right? Under Rohit Chopra, it's going to be different because he was the director of the FTC. The guy's like ready to go after advertising big time. But last year we just saw so many people trying to get crafty with the verbiage, and the FTC will go after that all day long because they read it exactly as it is. And so those things, like kind of going back to where we started, when you said, I have 4,000 reviews that are 5 stars. Well, if you have 16,000 reviews and the other 8,000 are 1 star, you're being very deceptive by saying I have 4,000 reviews that are 5 stars. So just watch the wording. Anybody using these at all should just make sure that they're not trying to craft it in a way that would confuse a reasonable consumer. And then you're not on the top of the list of the FTC.
So our auto posts all do include a link back to the source, which is the review itself, but the review lives on a page with all of the other reviews. So I think that we are safe in that. But I do actually have a question. I notice a lot of my clients will take some of their best reviews and they will then send them off to graphic designers to create much more attractive posts that they put on their Instagram.
Yeah.
When they put them on Instagram, they're not linking back to their page. Would you say then, from that perspective, you would advise them that they should always maybe put in the comments, this is one of many reviews, click here
to read
or
the
go
rest.
or go visit my website to view the rest or something?
I'm always going to be the most strict person. It's why I could not be a marketing person in the mortgage industry, because all of my ads would be horrible. They're so honest, you wouldn't want to send loans to me. But yeah, I mean, I think it would help. I don't know that you need an Instagram post. It's clearly a graphic. Like it just came in. Click here to see more. It's like, look what this guy said about me. I don't know that it's necessary, but would I probably would. And partly because I want you to read the rest of the reviews. Like most of the people, when I see an Experience.com loan officer, usually somebody that wants reviews is doing a good enough job to like be proud of those reviews, right? So when I see those, I always go to it. It's like there's just a lot of 5-star, ratings in there, and it's because if I was a 1-star loan officer, I just wouldn't sign up with you. Like, why would I want anybody to see what I'm doing? So yeah, I would say you want to brag about the rest of them, and I would. By the way, I'd be crazy as a compliance guy not to say this. Be careful in your responses. We all saw the loan officer in San Ramon, California last year or 2 years ago, who replied to a borrower who commented on Yelp and said, well, it didn't help that you have 3 30-day lates, your mortgage was late. And he basically just listed all the credit lines on the person's Yelp. Yeah. So that should obviously never happen in a reply to. Right. Just be careful about,
totally
stuff like that.
I mean, that's why we built the rules-based system, because some of our clients were like, look, you cannot let our loan officers reply to reviews. But if I don't let them reply to the good reviews, then you guys will never have the time to. You get too many reviews. Yeah. And they're like, okay, so is there a compromise? So the compromise is rules-based. So first of all, they can set a throttle across the entire company. They can just say, look, 100% of our loan officers can reply to 3.5 and higher, and 100% of the loan officers cannot reply to 3.5 below. We'll take care of that. But then they could go in and they could say, with the exception of these 21 guys and girls, I don't want to be sexist here, 21 people who have experience and they're mature enough and we trust them, they can reply to all their reviews, right? Just 21 out of 100, out of 1,000, right? And if you prove yourself through long service and artful wording, then we'll consider giving more people that right. So we've made it so that more people can reply to the negative reviews. You're 100% right. Whoever's replying, it should always include an apology. even if you
Right.
don't think you did anything wrong. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry that you're an idiot. No, I'm so sorry that you had a bad experience.
Yeah.
We strive to make all our clearly have failed in this case. Now,
Yeah.
that could be it. I will be calling you offline so I can learn more.
Yep.
Or my vice president and I, or I'm the CEO and nobody cares more than me because my name is on the logo. It says it right there, right? So whoever's replying should reply with an apology and be empathetic. But if you want to dispute it, you can say something like, my loan officer has told me the reason that we closed 4 days late was because we asked you for some documents with 10 days to get to us. And we did everything we could to meet the, despite the delay, but we did have to push it back, right? There are some CEOs who want to say, case closed. You're wrong, right?
Right.
We can only do so much. This is a partnership.
Yep.
So now before we finish, I think we really need to talk about what's the repercussions, because I think the language, I want to switch my screen. I don't know if you want to share the document, but the language on the second to last page of this bulletin, let me find these words. If the Bureau identifies a violation of the CFPA, it intends to use its authorities to hold the violators accountable. I mean, could you be more vague?
Yeah, it's Cordray CFPB. Like this, Rohit Chopra is running Cordray CFPB the way Cordray ran his CFPB. So they're vague because they don't know how much money you have. And typically the way they do it is once they bust you, they open up all your accounts. And then the goal is punish them to the extent that they can stay open. So if you've got $1 million in your accounts and you're operating on 500,000 every month, well, then they might take $300,000 to $500,000. So they end up taking, whatever they want and can get away with in a lot of these cases, because you're never just busted for one thing. UDAP is kind of the catch-all, the unfair, deceptive, and abusive acts and practices. If they can show that what you did was unfair, then it pulls the limits off of a lot of the things that they can do monetarily. So, they don't want to limit themselves at all.
Okay, so your customers are probably going to see this video, and I'm going to share it with my customers. So, I mean, what is your advice? Is it to just get in line and just assume that you're going to get busted if you don't?
Yeah. I mean, that's the only thing you can do. So my first thing is be careful with unique loan officers doing unique things. I love what you said about painting it across the whole company, because what I find is sometimes the loan officer will go sign up for like a CRM. And we saw last year a company got in trouble because the loan officer had a CRM with all the borrower data and the company didn't know. And so when loan officers go and buy something for themselves and the company doesn't know that exists, you've got potential data issues where now your data is, being stored in an unsafe way potentially, and that's your borrower, not the loan officer's borrower. So you have a lot of issues there. So be careful with anything that you're just doing uniquely, and then don't think that you can give somebody something and expect them to do it right without training, without monitoring, and without retraining. So anybody rolling out Experience.com should be rolling it out with, hey guys, this is what it does. This is how you do it. This is why we're doing this. And this is what happens when you get a bad review. A lot of times we're just missing that initial step. So a loan officer might jump in there and be like, wait, they said I could modify, blah, 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 and you go try to mess with things. So be careful how much authority you give people, but then also train them so they know what to expect. And then I think monitoring is a huge deal, right? So monitor every loan officer's page just to look for stuff, because loan officers like to push the envelope, right? They like to get as far as they possibly can. And then it's compliance officers forget as far this way. And like you find that line where you're comfortable working together, knowing that you're going to do it right. So don't get mad at loan officers for trying to get around something. Just make sure that they've been trained on it, monitored. And then if you have to look at it and go retrain, let's say even on a 4-star review, somebody goes on there and says something bad, then monitor and then put that person through retraining and potential corrective action. So that's what a company can do, is just really pay attention. But it all goes to policy, procedure, training, monitoring, retraining. potential corrective action, because you just don't want to be one of these companies.
So if you're a lender who has taken our API, or you're working with another company and you've got a feed, you've got an inventory of 20,000 reviews, and only 18,000 of them are 5 stars, which is still fantastic, right? But if you put together a website where you're only showing the 5-star reviews, maybe you've taken the stars off of them, right?
Right.
And there's a carousel and it just goes on for days. And you're like, wow, look at all these great reviews. Are you saying that they should be getting with their web developers right now and saying, we're changing this. We are either adding the word, here are some of our 5-star reviews. Click here to see all of our reviews. Right? Or make sure, look, this is all of our reviews. We are so proud of what our loan officers do and how they take care of our customers that we are willing to show you every review in chronological order. And you will find it gets boring after a while seeing all these 5 stars.
So there's a difference between a review and a testimonial. I think we all agree when you go to somebody's website and you see 3 statements that people have made, we have them on our website. Those are testimonials. And the average reasonable consumer knows you just put testimonials on your website. These are people that said the nicest things about you. You wanted to post it. A review is totally different in that a review is the raw, authentic words of the consumer that have been posted somewhere. And so I think just differentiating those two things. I think it's fine to have a few of them, but like what you said, if I'm just scrolling endlessly through 5 stars and I never once hit a 1 star, and yet I go to pro experience and I see a bunch of 1 stars, I've been lied to. So you just go in and think through the eyes of the consumer and release the information as it comes in, unless you're going to do like a 3 testimonial thing, which again, I think is totally different.
You know, we're probably out of time, but I actually thought of one more question here, because you mentioned a consumer who sort of sees all these great reviews and then goes to a website and says, wait a second, you're not showing me all the 1-star reviews. Is there any chance that consumers can be the drivers of CFPB's fines? And like, could someone say, I relied on reviews to make a decision, and now I think I should be compensated because they lied to me?
Absolutely. Yeah, people can sue over whatever they want. That's an easy lawsuit. If you were to get a horrible experience and you find out later there were all these 1 stars being throttled, then I would say there could definitely be something there.
So that's not even the fear of the regulators. That's not the fear of the regulators, though. That's the fear of litigation, of someone saying, I didn't have a good experience and you lied to me. I want you to null and void, or I want you to give me back the $9,000 in fees that were added to my mortgage.
Well, and consider this, right? What if one of those reviews said that there was a data breach and they talked to their loan officer and found out that there was a breach of data, and now all of a sudden you've got consumers that didn't know that because you throttled that one, and now were they in the data breach? Now they could have you on not notifying them when the data was released. I mean, all kinds of things. Or, you know, if I see something consistent in the testimonials that you hid or the reviews that you hid, and that's the exact thing that happened to me, I think that's where you see.
Okay.
And the other thing is you want to collect the review, because if you don't, the CFPB has a consumer database, a complaint database where borrowers can go in and complain all day long. And so your best bet or your best option is to get your review from the consumer to you so they feel heard, because most people don't go to the CFPB and report you if you handled it when they came to you. And so that's why I love what you guys do, is because you're finding bad things. Like, you're hopefully finding mainly good things, but you're discovering things that you can now solve for the consumer, which is going to keep them off of the CFPB's website going and reporting you because you solved it. And the only reason they created a consumer complaint database is because mortgage companies weren't fixing their complaints. They were just going, well, you know, the loan's dead now or done now, so whatever. And so they had to create it so they could get involved in the complaint resolution process. Well, if you have a complaint resolution process starting here, then you don't have to worry about the CFPB because you took care of it and they love you for it. So there is definitely a difference between somebody that takes care of problems and doesn't, but how are you going to take care of something you don't know exists? And that's why you guys exist, which is why I love what your company does, Craig.
So again, final advice would be clean up your website, make sure that you're either identifying that these are not all of the reviews or just show all of the reviews. And then the second thing is, don't ask us to remove the reviews, reply, pin, or have them retake it after you've spoken to them.
Yep, because your hands are tied too. You guys are what's called a service provider, and a service provider in the CFPB's regulations, that the things that they regulate, it includes you. And so you guys go in and start taking out these reviews, and you guys are the ones who end up getting busted. So a loan officer reaching out to you, Craig, to say, I need you to take this off the website, is asking you to put yourself at risk and in harm's way. When the CFPB goes and looks at you and says, why'd you take this one off there? You have to be able to defend that with them. So that's the other big deal.
All right. Well, thank you so much.